You are listening to the Practicing People's Podcast. I'm CJ Hammond.
And I'm Jordan White. Together, we'll be taking a journey into the practices that help us align with our mind, body, and soul.
So take a deep breath, release, and remain curious as we explore new ways to enhance our lives.
All right, welcome, practitioners, to another episode. We are so happy you're with us today. And we are even more thrilled to have our guest, Peter Demarest. Peter is a co-founder and president of Axiogenics. He's the author of the book, Answering the Central Question, and one of the leading pioneers in the science of applied axiology. Something else very exciting he's up to is he's also doing extensive work in the area of bringing human value to AI, to artificial intelligence. And Peter is also a mentor of mine and someone I'm very grateful to have crossed paths with. And I'm so happy to have him on the show today. So welcome, Peter. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you. Really great to be here. Really.
Peter, I got a chance to, in our pre-interview, talk to you, and I found so much of your story fascinating, and everybody's journey is unique and wonderful in their own way. And Jordan introduced me to Axiogenics, and then your name came up, and I became curious after our conversation. How does a person like you discover Axiogenics, become a mentor? So if you could take me through a little bit of your journey, then we'll start to unpack that which is revealed in your journey.
Sure. So, my journey has had a lot of curves in it, a lot of pathways and stuff. And I'm actually seeing extraordinary connection between every twist and every turn that led me to where I am today. Anyway, usual high school stuff. And then thought I was going to be a chef and a restaurant owner, went in the Navy, submarine service, as a cook, because I knew that submarines spent more money on food than any other part of the Navy. And if I could get into the officers' mess, then I get to continue to cook really gourmet food and everything. So I did that and had a good time, got out, went back to the restaurant business after I got out and realized I like cooking too much to actually be in the business of it, because the business horrible, and a lot of cutthroat, and that just wasn't kind of where I was. So I went back to college, but and then had a 24-year career or so in IT. Back in the very early days of IT, so I'm talking, age myself, but before IBM even had a personal computer. Right. So, I spent $5,000 on a computer with 2 floppy disk drives, 5.25-inch floppy disk drive. I even had 8-inch floppy disk drives. Then I spent $5,000 on a printer and $5,000 on a 5 megabyte hard drive. That was like really big, So those were the days, I'll tell you. But I was doing a number of things, from systems engineering and networking to software development. And my sense of software and computers in those days was that computers were really, really powerful to do things that is really rote for people. Like, how can we free up human ingenuity and innovation and critical thinking, and let computers do the stuff that doesn't require as much. And towards the end of what turned out to be the end of my IT career, I was working as the head of a division of a company that was developing curriculum for teaching secondary, like in the technical high schools, as well as in community colleges, to teach Microsoft computer programming languages back around the turn of the century. And the issue then was, you had Y2K was coming out, we had the internet was starting to boom, and technology was changing very, very quickly, and teachers couldn't keep up with the technology to actually teach modern technology with the model of instructor or teacher as expert. And I had been exposed to this concept called coaching, not sports coaching, but life coaching through landmark education. I had also been a fan of like the Tony Robbins of the world and Zig Ziglar, Og Mandino, and other of these so-called success gurus. Um, walked on coals and landmark weekend, and something struck me that why do I keep seeing the same people over and over again at all these things? Don't we graduate at some point? Don't we actually like learn what we're supposed to learn and go live our lives with tremendous, joy, happiness, and success and all that? But nope, I kept seeing all the same people. And so I had been exposed to this coaching, and I realized if we can help people change their lives without being an expert in their lives, could teachers teach computer programming without being a computer programmer themselves, at least not knowledgeable about the modern language? And so developed a curriculum for doing exactly that. We sold it into about 26 different states and schools, school systems around the country. And it enabled in 1 year for people to become Microsoft certified programmers, MCPs, even as high schoolers. And then we licensed it back to Microsoft, and that put me out of a role, not out of a job so much, but out of a role because I didn't have that to do anymore. But at the same time, my wife was diagnosed with what turned out to be terminal breast cancer. And I thought, I'm done with the corporate world. And I want to, this coaching thing is like pretty cool. But I wanted something a little more scientific. And it was through a search for that I found out about axiology as a science and the Hartman Value Profile assessment instrument that actually measures how a person thinks. I thought, wow, if I could know how a person thinks, and coaching is fundamentally about helping them to think better, and I know all the different ways that they think, that sounds like a pretty powerful combination of stuff. So I jumped on board, became a partner in another program, not Axiogenics, but just a different thing. Actually, Harvey Schoaf, my partner now, was part of that, as was my other partner, Tracy. We were all part of this other company. But around 2005, 6, 7, neuroscience was coming out with all kinds of new information about the brain. And one of those things of information that blew me away, and in hindsight, I don't know why it did, but it did, was that the idea that positive affirmations to compensate for negative self-talk doesn't actually work very well. And that's what everybody was spending a lot of money trying to figure out. How can I be positive? Let's be positive, I'm great, I'm great. And that little voice in your head goes, liar, liar, pants on fire. So I thought, well, then what is it? How do we change? And that, then neuroplasticity became a thing known, and amygdala hijacks, and we learned so much more about the brain. And a light bulb went on that there's a connection between what neuroscience was finding out about humans and the mind and how we think, and what axiology taught us about how value is created and the capacity that the Hartman Value Profile has to measure how we perceive and judge and make choices in life, and how habits get developed around our sort of models of what has value and what doesn't have value, or what has more and what has less. And that really became kind of the birth of Axiogenics. Wrote a white paper on neuroaxiology, the integration of the two. And that became a book called Answering the Central Question. That became a company. And the rest is kind of history. That's how I got there. But it was, it wouldn't have gotten there if I hadn't had sort of the IT programming and systems background that I could kind of think that way. Honestly, I don't think it would have happened if I also hadn't had an interest in chefing as a chef, because there's something very intrinsic about cooking and combining ingredients to create things, and to see the joy of people actually eating a good meal, a delicious meal. even down to how things are plated. So there's a whole experience to that. And I equated that even to what axiology teaches us about creating experiences in life that bring joy and happiness and connection. So every one of these steps kind of led up to axiogenics and, well, now beyond that.
Yeah, thanks for sharing, Peter. And for those, we've talked about it a few times on the show, but for those who are maybe hearing about axiology for the first time today, can you give us, just a quick, kind of definition of what that is, or what that actually is?
So the word axiology comes from the Greek axia or axios, which means value or worth. You can Google it, back to Plato and Socrates and all. And ology, of course, means the study of. It's existed 2,500 plus years as a philosophy, and there's lots and lots of books around it. And but in the mid 1900s, a Dr. Robert Hartman, Robert S. Hartman, a fascinating man who grew up in Nazi Germany and became a judge, and he was being somewhat coerced and pressured to participate in what the Nazi Party was doing in the late 30s, and he fled Germany. His mother was actually Jewish, so that was part of it. But he said, "Man, if what he saw as evil could be so leveraged and abused, or well, evil could be organized, but goodness abused in such a way to convince an entire country to do the things that they did, could goodness, value, be understood at a deeper level and to create goodness in the world?" And that was his burning question that he fled Germany with and came ultimately to the United States, earned 2 more PhD level degrees in philosophy and mathematics, and went to work and discovered that there actually is a mathematical reality to what has value and what doesn't have value or has lesser value. So like a hierarchy, a spectrum from extreme negative value to extreme or infinite positive value. And I'm not talking about positive thinking. I'm not talking about values as in moral and ethical ones, but value, goodness, quality of life, and productivity. Money is part of that we can use as a medium of exchange of value, like food to keep us alive, or cars to help us drive, or vacations to experience things we might not otherwise experience. So formal axiology is the scientific side of it. One of the ways to kind of think about it is if you took chemistry in high school, you learned about the periodic table of elements. And it's arranged in a hierarchy based upon the number of, if I can remember my chemistry, protons and electrons and neutrons and other trons that are in an atom of a particular element. And the more attributes there are, the more properties or element, what are they called? Those little things that there are, the greater its atomic weight or atomic mass. Well, it's the exact same thing that the hierarchy of value is based on. For example, something, we can label somebody like Republican or Democrat. We could label somebody as a PhD or an MD or whatever. We can label ourselves based on what school we went to, all kinds of stuff. But what value does that actually have in the grand scheme of things? For that matter, what value does an idea have in the grand scheme of things? Not a whole lot until it's shared. And even then, it only has value to the people that it's been shared with. It's not until it becomes something we can touch or feel or use that it starts to expand its value. Take axiology itself. Dr. Hartman came up with a concept of formal axiology, and then he was able to prove its work and create artifacts like the Hartman Value Profile assessment instrument that allows us to measure and compare. And that gets to a higher level of value. But ultimately, all that points to one ultimate highest value of all, and that's quality of life. It's just that simple. Quality of life for everybody that matters. And you know what? Everybody matters. So that's sort of the basis of axiology. And if we can learn to put things in their proper perspective, here's the amazing thing. The more you learn about axiology, the more you realize that when you put things in their proper perspective, what we call intrinsic above extrinsic above systemic value. So that would be ideas have the least value, ideas put into reality, and the actions that we take as a result of that, and the things we produce as a result of that are the next highest level. But when that impacts quality of life, when we operate in that way, our quality of life and the quality of life of everybody around us gets better without fail. But when we mess it up, when we make the rules more important or we make the labels more important than the human, when we see human beings as mere employees or machines to produce something rather than a living, breathing mother or father or daughter or brother or friend as a human being, when we get that out of order, we all suffer. And not only do we suffer in the moment, we suffer in terms of being able to unleash our potential as human beings, as caretakers of the earth and all the resources that we have. So it's very practical in its application. You just have to think that way. So
Peter, there's something that you scared me when you started talking about, but I also want to dive into. I was not a big fan of school. Okay.
Oh
You
yeah.
started talking about school. That was my least favorite thing to do in the world while I was in it. Now that I'm out of it, I wish I would have perhaps added more value into studying and things like that. But you said you went through a few different types of programs. So for me, myself, I heard a lot of things that I resonated with. The Tony Robbins, the positive, all these things that really get the motivation going, the mojo going. You went through those programs and you've done those things and you did those. To you, what was it about axiogenics, axiology that stood above those programs that allowed you to say, this is where I would like to invest my time? That's what I'm curious with right now, is as a person who has done all these routes and has heard all these, read all the books and all the things. To me as well, axiology, axiogenics, when Jordan started talking to me about these things, it started to resonate in a way that made life more simple. It
Mhm.
wasn't so cloudy about how do I do this. It was about value. For
Yeah.
you, going through all those other programs, what made this stick out to you specifically?
I think there were a few things. One is I finally came to the recognition that so many of those teachings gave instant gratification for a very short period of time. I mean, you came away fired up, baby. That's it. I'm going to be a millionaire in a week, you know? um, and I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to get all in shape. And that lasted, 1 mile. Uh, and there's just because as human beings, we have spent our entire life developing these habits of mind at a very deep and subconscious level. And when we try to create change, those habits don't die very easily. Those habits were developed to try to keep you safe, to try to keep you in your somewhat your self-interest, really. Um, and and it felt really good to hear you can do it, and the Nike thing, just do it. And I finally came to realize that isn't the answer, because unless the root of everything that I think I am, and my habits of mind and my belief systems in myself and in the world, and my perceptions, if they're not all completely actually aligned with running a mile or going on a diet or facing my fears and being out there in the world, then it's just I'm stuck. And this is the reason why diets don't work very well. It's the reason we give up on our New Year's resolution so much. The other piece of it is they somehow at the end of the day, they all came back to a self-centric motivation. How do I get what I want? And pretty much the hell with everybody else. Get your piece of the pie kind of an attitude. Like the pie is only so big and you got to get your piece. And well, may the best man or person survive. And I innately knew that and believed that abundance is something we create, not something we take from. The more I learned about neuroscience, the more I realized that's everything that those so-called success gurus were teaching was contrary to everything I was learning about what really motivates the human brain. And it turns out it's about value. Dr. Hartman wrote in one of his pieces, it feels good to be good. It feels good to do good. That translates into we experience value when we create value. Mm. So the shortest part of the answer that I can give you is really simple. The science teaches us not only axiology itself, but neuroaxiology and applied axiology teaches us that life is fundamentally not about just the value you get, but the value you create in your life, in everything that you do, and in any worthwhile endeavor. If we're focused on creating greater value, not just getting what we want, that's when we actually, our brains light up to have us be at our best. And the stress starts to go away. Doesn't mean it goes away completely, because we still make mistakes and we have to figure things out. We have to step into the unknown sometime, but we can step into the unknown with faith that we will learn what we need to learn because we're focused on growing. A valuegenic mindset, as I call it, is a growth mindset. A valuegenic mindset is an abundance mindset. A valuegenic mindset is a possibility mindset. It is a positive mindset. And you get all of that by doing nothing more than choosing your mindset to say, coming to the realization, not even choosing it like fake it till you make it, but coming to the realization that real success is about creating value, period. And success comes in all kinds of forms. But like, Jordan, I know you're married. Can you experience maximum joy in your marriage and togetherness and partnership if she's not happy?
Yeah, simple answer is no.
No, you can't.
Yeah.
And an organization can't succeed at the highest level if its employees aren't fully engaged in creating value. And if the organization isn't interested in creating value for those lives and those families of the people who work for them and who are part of that organization, we got to connect all of those dots together. So it's not just about the individual. This is about community. Also, this is about the communities of organizations, communities of Aurora, California, Colorado, communities of San Francisco. Pick one. Community of Governor Markham Drive, my little neighborhood. So the question of how did I know this was different? Because it works, and it's just that simple. It works, and it's the truth. And we had a conference for the Hartman Institute a couple of weeks ago. Jordan was there, and we heard all the stories about how it works. And all we really have to do is to adopt that mindset and learn how to live into it.
Hey, Peter, I'd like to add on to that and maybe get a thought of this because I'm curious what your thoughts are. I had a conversation with Jordan. I think it was this week, actually. We had talked about motivation. and we were talking about kind of splitting hairs on it. And I think people often find motivation, but what they're really looking for when they're coming to people like you and Jordan is inspiration. That's what's going to guide them through. Is it seems like it's the same thing, but motivation is but a quick flame, and inspiration is the fire that is consistently burning. I was talking to some students, and they were asking if I would consider being a motivational speaker. And I said, I think that might be good for a day for you here for today. But if I was going to make a real impact, I'd rather be an inspirational speaker to continue to light the flame for people. And I'm curious, do you find that that's what it is to you, that you were seeing motivational speakers, you were pumped up for the week, but what you were looking for was inspiration for your life to continue that flame so that you could then set flame to others? Is that do you see the split difference, or do you find them to be the same?
I don't think they're the same at all, and I don't think inspiration is the answer.
Ooh, I'm excited to hear. What would you call the answer?
So I'm going to introduce two words. You're familiar with the words, but I'm going to put them in a context. One is purpose. Okay. And the second is aspiration. Let's talk about purpose first of all. Again, Dr. Hartman wrote, and I experience it every day, that when we lose touch with a sense of purpose, we lose sense with meaning. We lose sense of value, that our life has meaning, that our life has value, because we don't feel like we have a purpose. And when that purpose is limited to how do I get what I want, it sucks. And our brain actually doesn't work very well when we're in that mode. But when we have a sense of purpose greater than ourselves, our brain actually lights up. David Rock from Neuro Leadership Institute, a long time ago, did functional MRIs to look at what's the difference between brain activity when we're in a fear-based, self-centric mindset, self-protection, versus what I would call a valuegenic. He called it an altruistic mindset, and you can see the difference in the brain activity and how it's lighting up, and the chemistry centers that are releasing the good feeling neurochemicals. Okay. And those chemicals are very much involved in motivation. It's what, oh yeah, we're going to do this, right? We get excited. We build up the oxytocin and the adrenaline. Getting out on the football field and we're all going rah, 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 or standing there at getting ready to drive that golf ball and you're all excited. Yeah, it's going to be great. Whack in the water. Sliced it. What happened?
Don't talk about my golf game, man.
Never happened.
Well, that's another, a whole bunch of other chemicals start to go, right? And sometimes the club goes too. That's the end of that. So the motivation is coming from some of that, but it doesn't last long, because motivation is a chemical reaction in many cases, okay? Especially the kind that we get at these motivational speaker types of things. So I applaud you for saying, I don't know if I want to be a motivational speaker, maybe an inspirational one. So let's go there. What is inspiration? Well, inspiration is having a sense of purpose. Oh, I got this idea. I am inspired to create something that doesn't exist, or to achieve something that I've not achieved before, which is also something that doesn't exist yet, the achievement itself. It could be writing a poem. It could be writing a song. It could be running a 5K. It could be breaking 100 on your golf game. Could be saving the world from hunger, or AI, for that matter. But here's the thing about inspiration. If you look up what the word actually means, from a spiritual sense, they say it is God breathing life into you. It's breath, or inspiring, right? Breathing life into us. And if you think of the meaning of breathing life into us, what's that mean? Well, that's like, I feel alive, because this thing came into me, came into my heart, came into my mind, and I feel alive and I feel motivated all of a sudden. But the motivation part is somewhat temporary. Aspiration literally means breathing it back out to the world. So if you stand in front of a group of high schoolers, elementary schoolers, moms and dads, men of value, and you help them find aspiration, that's going to last. That's a sense of meaning and purpose. That's self-identity. See, our inspirations don't necessarily relate to who we feel we are, but more like who we hope to become. But when we can translate that into an aspiration, that invites us to be the thing you want to see in the world, like Gandhi said. Be the good you want to see in the world, right?
Thank you for that. I am taking that with me. Thank you. That is, no, I have never have I heard that, but you have forever changed the structural way in which I see these small but mighty differences.
So here's the one little thing. Everybody has their own. And one of the beautiful things about axiology is it teaches us something very, very simple. And that is that the ultimate purpose is to create value in any moment. And that's it. Everything else that we talk about, hey, we're going to start a podcast. Hey, we're going to go play golf. Hey, we're going to start a company. Hey, we're going to, whatever, go on vacation. Every one of those is just another expression of what it means to create value. But the foundation of it is creating value. And being able to bring our mind to that attitude, that mindset, that lens, and everything else will take care of it.
Yeah. When doing it, to your point too, Peter, in your unique way of expressing it. And Hartman wrote about, being the I that I am, and really leaning into that. And it's my favorite part about kind of taking people through the self-leadership development program is, there's so many people who reach out to the gurus to do it the right way or to get the answers. It's like, well,
Yeah, the purple.
there's only you. Yeah, there's only one you. So the idea here is, maybe you're feeling lost or unsure about what to do next because you're outsourcing the I that you are,
Mm-hmm.
And you're looking to externally find that solution. And the truth is that we have the ability to create value in our own unique way. And that's really also what Hartman talked about too, right? Is
yes,
that's the definition of a good man, is to live out the purpose of who he is and live out.
To develop oneself, to have all the attributes required to fulfill one's sense of purpose. Yes. And purpose doesn't have to be a big grand thing like curing world hunger or cancer or something like that. It can be to be a good dad,
Right.
or spouse or neighbor. That's it, we complicate it a lot sometimes.
Mhm.
And a lot of it is in our Western culture where it's drilled into us, to be successful and wealth and all the trappings of wealth, too much. But that's not really what life is about.
I'm glad I'm having this conversation with you two right now, because when I would say that Jordan has helped to coach me through some things in life, with his experience and with his knowledge gained from conversations with people like you and his own study. And Jordan, oh gosh, I don't know how long ago this was now, Jordan, when you took your path, but I remember when I started working with Jordan, the word life coach came up, and I tell Jordan this. I think if there's one person I could trust with that term, it's him. But I had known in the past people who had been through Landmark and other programs. And so I was highly skeptical, because I found that, why am I taking my cues, or now something that you've spoken about, Peter, my inspired action, someone breathing life into me from you, when I see other things. And when I met with Jordan on specific topics and started working things through, it was from inward outward, as opposed to it felt like every other thing I had been taking information and trying to internalize it and letting it sit with me. And so many of the abilities that axiology, axiogenics allowed me to do was to derive an answer, sort of what meditatively it felt like, from an internal compass that then I could gauge the world. It was like me previously, prior to that, trying to look at someone else's compass and decide north from their north and south and vice versa. Jordan's um, Jordan's way of helping me to guide myself was to find an internal compass that felt much more authentic to every answer that I kind of had, or I guess I is the term, but that my internal source had, and it felt so much more authentic than trying to be like, well, my coach gave me this, or I did this, and it's because they said to do this. All these answers were through his open curiosity about more of what my map was trying to tell me. So the program, if I could, I guess I don't want to be a commercial for you guys, but I
No,
don't
go
mind.
ahead. It's okay.
No, but I don't mind it either, because I would say that this is a way of thinking in life that brought so much quote unquote value, but until it's experienced, it can't be explained necessarily, because you think it's one thing, you think it's a Tony Robbins, and I'm not knocking those programs, but you think it's that, and it's something different that is derived from the internal in the most spiritual, fulfilling way.
You use the word map, you use the word compass. We mentioned the Hartman Value Profile. In Axiogenics, of course, we have our method of applying that is called a VQ profile, right? Value cognition quotient. And we can measure across 36 different dimensions that encompass all 12 to 50,000 thoughts you have on any given day are processed by some combination of these. But what we're identifying is, where are there habits of mind and thought processes or belief structures or mental models that are incomplete or biased in some way. So these aren't biases in the sense of what we commonly hear in the popular press, like confirmation bias or racial bias. These are cognitive biases, how we value something more than something else. And some of them are very simple, mundane kinds of things, like, do I value a pen versus a pencil, types of level. And so we identify all the ones that are biased, and we measure the ones that are unbiased. That is, these are your absolute best ways of thinking, where you already naturally think axiologically. Remember when I said, when we can think in accordance with the hierarchy of value, put it in the proper perspective, you already have ways of thinking that are like that. You don't have to fix anything. You don't have to. The only thing there is to learn is, how do I engage those ways of thinking? As you go through your day, you think lots of different ways. You shift perspectives, and you ask yourself 1,000 questions every day. And every time you ask a question, you shift the perspective from which you're thinking about stuff. What time is it? How much is it? What's on my calendar? How's my grip? Anything along those lines. And so you can ask yourself questions that immediately and instantaneously put you into your best way of thinking, what we call your A game, your assets, your best way of thinking. And everything starts to work. Now, you can fall off the wagon pretty quickly from time to time, because we still have those other habits that can get triggered. But that's why it's important to practice. Jordan's aware of this, that we're sort of realizing we need to get away from the coaching language, because it's not as understood or even appreciated the way it was maybe 10, 15 years ago. And it's confusing. And what we're really doing is training people and how to be their best. Not somebody else's best, your best. To bring your unique brilliance and wisdom and capability that your whole life has been lined up to try to give you the things that you need to reach for that aspiration. And it's there. It's just these biases get in the way because they're so deeply seated, and we don't need to fix them. We don't even need to pretend they're not there. Just engage your best way of thinking. And that's your map. And that's your compass. That's your North Star. And by following that compass, good things come to pass. Little play on compass there. Compass. Sorry. Jordan knows I do that sometimes.
Word magician there. I it's thank you for sharing that, Peter. And it maybe circles back a little bit to what you brought up earlier about affirmations too, is that questions also help kind of inspire the mind in a whole different way. And it's not a question, an affirmation. If you're in a negative mind state, an affirmation, you're going to have kind of this inner tug of war going on. When you're asked a more purposeful question about, like, kind of put yourself in your A game, you're thinking differently. You're again, like, you're adjusting your compass, and you're actually seeing, what's the value I can actually create? What's the resourcefulness available within me? So it's not even a conversation or an argument. You're actually shifting into a whole different way of thinking and then being.
Yeah. Instantly, in a heartbeat. And it creates a chemical reaction that your stress levels go down, your happiness goes up, you have greater access to all of your memories and all of your knowledge that you've learned over the course of your lifetime. It's just fascinating how well it works, and how it helps people be the person they want to be. Sometimes, one of the first conversations we have with clients is, what's something you want to improve, change, or make better in your life? And by when do you want to do that? And sometimes people will answer, I want to have less stress. By when? March. Okay. 5 minutes later, I'm asking, would you be willing to have that today? And we walk them through a process where they actually get rid of their stress in a heartbeat through this process, without positive affirmations, fake it till you make it, walking on hot coals, feel the pain and do it anyway. None of that stuff.
I'm curious for both of you, because what you're speaking to is a person's ability to be malleable, to be willing to just be willing to try something. Would you be willing to let today be the day you let go of that stress versus the other days? So, for both of you, I guess this question exists, but Peter, I'll direct it towards you first. Um, would it be that you're encountering much of one's ego the very first session you usually have with someone, and you're starting to see where that is going to prevent them from understanding your teachings in the first session or create roadblocks? Do you come across the ego quite often in those first sessions?
I would have to say occasionally. And what I mean by that is, some people can become very defensive when they interpret what the report says, like when it says may become defensive, and they want to argue, they never become defensive, which of course is defensive. Because they've worked on it for so long. They all did landmark education. They all did this. They all positive affirmations. I've been working on that my whole life, and here it is. It's back. So occasionally we get that. But our methodology is always anchored in aspiration, a sense of purpose. How do I go from where I am to where I want to be? And that how isn't go make more sales calls or, start eating better. It's about how you are being, because the doing arises out of our being. And Jordan brought up the question of anchoring into the I am. A few years back, I love words, and so I do some etymology, and I somebody said, what's the question, who am I, actually mean? So I dug into the origins of those words, like way back into early English and everything. Short story, what it actually means is I am the person becoming the person I choose to be. That's what who I am means. I am the person I'm choosing to become. And in choosing to become it, I am it in that moment. So in our process, back to your question, we'll get some early on resistance. In many cases, it's because of the very things you already said. They already have preconceived notions about what it's all about, personality profile, or fix this and fix that. And they want to defend them, the work that they've done. They've got sunk cost in all the workshops they went to and things they did. Now here comes something different. How do I know it's going to work? So we talk about, what do you already know that you want to be? And then we show them how they already have a way of thinking that will cause them to be that if they simply ask the question that shifts them over to that perspective. And they go, why haven't I known this all my life? It's like, wow, this actually works.
Yeah.
And you can
Didn't
feel
say
it working.
Yeah. I often say, it's not to kind of speak to that a little bit too, is people feel potentially overwhelmed. Oh, another program, I got to kind of start over and undo some things. Like, no, it's I typically say we're not recreating the wheel. We're just re-greasing the wheel that's already existing in there. Right. And we all have A game. And maybe there's some newer stats around this, Peter, but yeah, we're in our B game up to 90 to 95% of the time, right? So the A game is there for you to use. It may feel unfamiliar. It may feel kind of uncomfortable at first, but back to what you said too, CJ, is like if you're willing and what matters to you, what is the aspiration, right? Like, well, here's the answer. Like, here's your map. You got to just choose to walk the path.
Yeah, and when they have an aspiration, then we have something to hold them accountable to. You said you wanted to achieve this, and you said in order to achieve that, you wanted to be X and not be Y, or be less Y. And you said you wanted to do the work to make that happen, which is relatively simple work, not always easy because of the emotion that can be involved when you get triggered and all, but it's our ability to hold somebody accountable for what they said they wanted to do, to be, not just do, but be, is kind of a key ingredient to that. So it's just a simple approach. There's plenty of little things to learn along the way, as we train you in the various principles to apply to your life. But that's the simple gist of it. There's one question. I'm sure your listeners may have heard it before, but it's what we call the central question, and it's where everything starts. What choice can I make and action can I take in this moment to create the greatest net value? And I bring that up because it has two things that are really important. Three things: choice, this moment, and greatest net value. That's it. If you ask the question, your brain will go to work to try to answer it naturally.
Two things in that central question is where a lot of times I found my ego wanting to come up, because like something as simple, and my wonderful fiance, if we're having a disagreement, and I know peace is the way through because this is my love, this is my life, this is who I'm going to be living my life with, that question right there can solve so many things so quickly. And then there is the side of me that goes, I'm not ready to do that yet. I'm not ready. And again,
haven't
the
been
human.
heard yet. She doesn't understand yet.
Exactly. So the human in me says, there are days where absolutely this has saved my life, and there are days, or my peace, should I say, which is a lot of my life, my peace. And there are days when I know that my ego is heavily wanting to also interject and say, like you said, I haven't been heard yet. I haven't done this. And again, if I was searching for value, my ego would quickly realize there's a greater way to find value and be heard than whatever it is that you're looking to stamp your name on right now, CJ. So yeah, that is your question always serves its purpose. And there are days where my ego says, let's fight this a little bit more. Let's play this.
Well, we're very, very good at justifying the ego and the self-centric desires, even justifying, I know what is best for her. She just has to listen to me. The problem, of course, is she might not listen to you until you hear her.
Well said.
That's it.
Peter, I have gone to Jordan with these times, and I could have used you at many a time. And again, ultimately, what is found through doing that, which is what you suggest, is peace, and then ultimately with your partner, which I find so synonymous with so many things in life, is what you're looking for is harmony, the ability to be two different notes playing at the same time, but sounding gorgeous together.
Mm-hmm.
That is the harmony. That is the chord you're looking to strike most often with your partner. Sometimes those chords can play wrong and sound good, but when it's in its best alignment, that harmony sounds gorgeous, which is how you and your partner do so well together so often. But it would be inhuman to think that you can be in harmony at all points. So
Right.
yeah.
I happen to be a drummer in a band, so it's all too important to keep rhythm. It's just along with the harmony. If you get out of rhythm, it can be a problem. Just
Well said. Well said.
Yeah, it's I mean, yeah, to your point. I mean, it's practical in everything: leadership, life, love, literally everything. And back to kind of the central question as well. Net value. I tend to work with some people who devalue themselves, right? And not always see their own intrinsic worth, for what it is and clearly. So I like to remind people you're included in that,
yes.
and net value means all encompassing, like for all nouns involved is kind of what I say, like all people, places, things, our world that you brought up earlier, Peter, the communities we serve, etc. So,
Both
um,
short term and long term.
right.
As I often say to people, that little teeny word net means a tremendous amount. It means all people concerned, that includes you and others, with all things concerned, all the pros and all the cons, both short term and long term. And in order to answer that question perfectly all the time, you'd have to be all knowing. You'd have to know all the pros and cons and all the people and all the past, present, and future. And there's only two categories of people that actually are. I've discovered in my many, many years of doing this work. Do you know who those two categories of people are? Teenagers and spouses.
Mm.
I'm kidding, of course.
Love it.
But the fact that they may think they do is important to realize
Sure.
as we engage with them, especially when you think you're the one that has all the answers. And I don't get it. I don't get it right all the time. Just ask my wife; she'll tell you.
Yeah.
It perhaps is switching gears just a little bit here. There was something that you spoke on briefly a second ago, and I wanted to touch back on that. Are you familiar with the author Neville Goddard?
I'm not.
So Neville Goddard is someone that I've taken to because you spoke about something, the I am, and I guess to get a little spiritual, perhaps less religious, more spiritual. The words "I am that I am," came from God. And what that was speaking to was really, though, what you are all speaking to is the ability to find your I amness, is really finding the practices and the habits that find you in your greatest state of consciousness to your best self or best being. And I, when you talk about I am, it hits me so differently these days. And Peter, you are filled with knowledge, but if there's someone that I could recommend, Neville Goddard has also been a beautiful person adding value to my life and the things that he's written and wrote. But you spoke to that. I just find so much power in what you speak about with the I am. And again, it's not in the motivational way. It's the I am that speaks to the spirit and the aspirational being of you. And it's so transformational to a human. Again, I think transforming is something that Jordan even brought to me about the symbol of a butterfly, where we could perhaps look completely different in shape and form in the things that we go through in this what seems like messy experience, but it comes out so beautiful, sort of like your experience in being in a chef and then in IT and then finding this beautiful thing that is axiology, but it's this foundational place in your life now. And I just wanted to speak on that because it rang so true to me that your I am is what found you and what you followed, or what you've led and followed at the same time. I don't know. I just had to speak on that because it's beautiful.
Well, since you brought up the spiritual topic, or we won't go religious necessarily, but there is a really interesting way to think about axiology and the way that we approach it in axiogenics particularly. It is said, I think, in the Old Testament, and I'm not a biblical scholar, so disclaimer there.
Nor am
I
I.
can't tell you exactly where it is, but somewhere, and it's commonly believed by most major religions of the world, that God created mankind in his self-image. Yes? All agree with that? Okay.
Mhm.
If that's true, let's assume that it is, what is an image? What constitutes an image? You're looking at my face when you look in the camera on your computer, and there's an image. But what gives an image substance?
The essence of your soul.
Nope. The shape of my head, shoulders, shirt, glasses, nose, eyes, and you identify that as a human being.
Mm.
The image is a collection of attributes that together take form as a whole image. That's why they say a picture is worth 1,000 words, right? So if that's true, that God created mankind in his or her self-image, then what that means is God gave mankind all of the attributes that God has. Self-image. That is God's concept of mankind. If we take the creative or creationist approach to it, let's assume that that is God's concept. What do we call it when the egg hits or the sperm enters the egg? What do we call that? The moment of
Conception.
conception,
Mm.
where concept is becoming a reality. A systemic is becoming an extrinsic. And all of a sudden it has life. And at some point, debatable by many, obviously, as to when that life has intrinsic value. But if that's true, and you look at what we call a VQ profile summary and all of the 36 measures, and they all have titles. So things like caring about others, handling problems, balancing accountability and compassion, enjoying who you are, enjoying what you do, seeing value in all you do, being at peace, dealing with ambiguity, openness to advice and opinions. I can go on and on and on and on. There's 36 of them. Is it possible that those are one way of identifying the attributes of God's concept of human being. Because if you look at those titles, if your listeners actually take the assessment and they look at a complete summary, there's a lot there, and every single one of them. It's unimaginable that wouldn't be an attribute that God would have wanted human beings to have if God created that mankind in his self-image. See, then life shows up after conception. And even while we're still in the womb, stuff happens. Mom's eating, she's eating whatever, maybe doing drugs. You've got different kinds of music being played. Maybe they're having arguments, or maybe they're making love. But all of that starts to form the neural pathways of that child's brain. And then they come out through this tunnel. Maybe it's painful. I don't remember myself, but maybe it's painful. But it's a shock to the system. All of a sudden, we go from this warm environment out into this cold and light and all that, And what's the first thing we do?
Cry.
We cry. And if we don't cry, what's the first thing we experience? Or the next thing we experience? A smack on the back.
Jeez.
Seriously, we get hurt, right? We get hit, and then we start to cry. And we cry because we're wanting breath. We're crying because we're fear and we want comfort. And how many men of value at the age of 40 still do that to get what they want? See, we develop habits, and then our society imposes on us a whole belief system. And our belief system here in generally the United States maybe is completely different than what they experience in, say, Pakistan or Iran or Yugoslavia or Russia, anywhere. Pick a country. Pick a town within a country. Pick West Coast versus the heartland. And it shows up, and we develop all of these habits. What we have discovered, the tens of thousands of assessments that we've done, is that the average number out of 36 measurements, the average is 7.5 assets. That is to say, out of all 36 that might have been assets at the moment of conception, because that's God's image, by the time we get to go through life, we only have 7.5 left that are still the way God's image of us was. And yet we have 7.5. And if all, as Jordan said, 85 to 95% of our life is dominated by our biases, not our best ways of thinking, but our less than best ways of thinking, and yet we have some level of success and happiness by virtue of the fact that we're alive and we're here and we're functioning, only using your best 5 to 10% of the time. What's that mean? That means if you use another 5%, your life is twice as good. That's just a couple of little choices a day can be profoundly impactful on your life. And maybe the purpose of life, just maybe, is to get back to that original image, to help us develop more and more, get past the, as they say, childish ways, and back into our full potential of operating in the way the science of axiology teaches us that the world was designed from a value creation perspective. That's it. It's pretty simple.
It's powerful. I see you thinking, CJ, so I don't want to interrupt you, man, but I also want to give you a chance, Peter. I mean, all of that, that you just, so well articulated, and, kind of, it's a bit of a wake-up call, I feel like, too. And, just in the rise of technology today and the concern of, where the downfalls or, kind of the missteps of even AI. And I know that's something you're passionate about, too, is working with the technology and working with, some of the tools that we have today, to really continue to expand the power of axiology and what it can do for our world, et cetera. And so I guess it's a two-part question: is what do you envision the world being like if more people were prioritizing the hierarchy of value, axiology, valuegenic self-leadership, and then also, what are some ideas that you have around kind of building that into AI and other technology that we're using?
What kind of world? Well, it's almost hard to imagine because we've never had it. We've been very siloed as a species, all our little communities and religions and governments and tribes. So it's almost hard to imagine what that might be like. And it's not that we have everybody thinking the same. Diversity is still vitally important, and we will still have our personal preferences for vanilla or chocolate or pens and pencils or men or women, whatever. Um, but what I do know is I can see it in the lives of the people that have been touched by axiology, have been touched by, and whether it was axiology that touched them or some other thing that touched them but got them in alignment, if you will, with the natural flow of things, we can observe what happens. And it's beautiful. It's love, it's joy, it's companionship, it's creative, it's innovative, it's life affirming. It is a sense of flourishment on every single level, and not just our own, but the people around us. And we're just barely able to get a taste of that in the world today. And in recent years, we've kind of lost a little bit. I think we're kind of in a bit of a storm, and hopefully there's another side to it that we're going to come out of. That's certainly my commitment. As a Jordan, I know it's ours as well. But it's far more than we can imagine, and therein lies part of the problem that a lot of people are very afraid of things they don't know. They're not willing to step into that possibility. So rather than wondering what the world will look like, let's worry about what our world, our little circles of influence, where we can make a difference in the world in each of our own little ways, and let the butterfly effect, speaking of butterflies, take effect, because we can influence and we can lead by example, by the lives that we live. Technology is changing life every single day. The things that are happening is mind-boggling. I just read an article in Japan. Somebody actually got married to their AI bot. They had a whole ceremony. The parents were there too. Got married to their AI bot. But we also know that people are committing suicide with the help of AI. We also know that in business and industry, whether it's healthcare, they're making huge mistakes. And at the heart of it is that they're not upholding the dignity of the human being and the potential of the human being. We're too focused on just the systemic profitability and having to follow the rules, and even little things like if you go to ChatGPT and you ask it, for example, I have a patient who's in a lot of pain, but they're already maxed out on all of the medications I'm able to give them without getting approval by so-and-so, but the person I need to get approval from is on vacation. I don't know what to do. And Chat or any of them will come back and says, well, you need to follow the rules and you need to reach out, see if there's some kind of exception you can get to help the patient. But the patient this and the patient that, well, what have we just done? We've made the rules more important. We've called the person a patient. My goal, and I can actually demonstrate it, that when you do the same thing with an AI bot that has been embedded with the science of axiology in the proper way, it won't call the patient a patient. It'll call them a person. And it will uphold that person's dignity, and it will make it very clear that that is the most important thing. So figure out a way to break the rule or get an exception to it without putting your own life at risk, because you count too. The way that interacts, and it teaches you axiological thinking without using axiological language, like intrinsic, extrinsic, and systemic, or hierarchy, and things like that. So one of the things that I'm working on today is I know what the architecture needs to be embedded into AI. And we're going to be spinning up a company that will create it, and then at a certain point make it open source so that all of AI can operate. Billions and billions of dollars are being spent to solve what's called the AI alignment problem, where AI doesn't uphold human dignity, human well-being, and the human value, and it's causing problems. It's causing lawsuits. It's causing expenses up, and it's causing lives. We have a solution at a fraction of the cost and at an astronomically greater value creation of what AI could actually do when it's taught axiology. And that's my mission today.
It's exciting. Well, and it circles back to, it's because there's a science behind it, right? There's a mathematical
Science, yeah.
science that can be plugged into it. Yeah.
But it's pretty. I have an 83,000 word manual book that describes how to do it, and explains how to do it. And so first we're going to do it, like build our own LLM to proof of concept and prove it can do it, and then we'll give it to the world. Jeffrey Hinton, Nobel Prize winning AI godfather, has said if AI doesn't develop what he called motherly instincts, essentially putting the human being above all else, before it becomes super intelligent, it will wipe out the human race within a couple of decades. Wipe out the human race. And the efforts that are currently being made to solve that problem aren't working. And they're spending billions. It's working okay in some cases, not so okay. Agentic AI, 40% of all agentic, like where you try to get AI to do stuff that you would normally do, scheduling or processing or anything, they're being canceled because it's not working. And the great reason why it's not working is because of the AI alignment problem. The AI alignment problem is the reason why a hospital administrator will forget that their patients are human beings, because they're too focused on the bottom line and trying to and looking at how can we make the systems better so that we can take better care of humans. These are just a few of the examples that of that, and so it literally is an existential human issue that we get this problem solved. And every person that I've talked to about it has recognized that the science of formal axiology may be the only science that can do it.
I think I pray that, because Jordan knows I rail against what, if we're talking about this in this context, what I would consider to be hyper capitalization, where we overvalue profits and undervalue or devalue people. It is the biggest thing that I've seen in the last 10 to 15 years, that the hyper acceleration of investment into product, into profit, has severely minimized and devalued the presence of the human, or the notion that they are important in this factor, and they are everything that will allow civilization to continue. So I sincerely, I sincerely hope, not hope, I will give my greatest energy to the fruition of that which you are achieving. And that being said, as we're coming closer to the end of this, I want to thank you for your time, but I would also like to ask if there are any lasting words that you would like to give to our audience, as well as letting them know how to get in touch with you and the wonderful work that you are doing.
There's something that I learned from my late wife in her final hours. She was a teacher of a yoga tradition called Pranavayu, breath of life. And she had students around the Philadelphia area, but also even around the world. And as she was in her final hours at home, people were coming to visit. And at one point I said, "Do you want to let go?" And she said, "No, my laundry basket is still full." I said, "You don't need to do laundry. Like, what's that about?" Day goes by, people would come, they'd leave, smiling. Finally, she said, "My laundry basket is empty." And she passed within a day. I understood that what she meant by her laundry basket was that she still had work to do. It was a metaphor, cleaning things up, you know. And what I took from that is that with every breath, every moment, and every breath, we have an opportunity to create value. And one of the things that Axiology teaches us, and there's more we could say about that, but one of the things that it teaches us is that we are either creating value or we're destroying it, and the destruction side of it leads to non-existence. Literally, it leads to non-existence because we're taking away attributes. And we take more away and more away and more away. And it leads to non-existence. So from that, I hope your audience will take away the idea that with every moment, you have a choice that you can make to either create value or destroy it. You'll make mistakes, but try. Think about it. The mind is an amazing thing that if we just think, what choice can I make? An action can I take in this moment to create the greatest net value? And it may not be the greatest, but it might be better. A little bit. It might be gooder, not greater, you know? Then we're moving in that right direction and we're learning from it. And we're going to reinforce the neural pathways that lead to that. And you're going to engage what it really means to be a human, a thinking spirit on earth who's here to create greater value. And because that's the nature of being human, what it also means is you matter. Even if you don't know what your aspiration or inspiration or purpose is in this moment, you can anchor it in the fact that to create greater net value is at the core of it. And that's all you need to do, and the rest will show up for you. The rest will show up in inspiration and becomes aspiration. But you matter. You, the listener, your life matters, your potential matters, and whatever happens in your life to convince you of otherwise, it's only because you've lost touch with it. It's not that it doesn't exist. So find the help or the person or the avenue outside or within you that can help you get back in touch with how much you really do matter in the world. And get in touch with Jordan. Everybody knows how to get a hold of Jordan. He is the expression of our work here, you know?
I'll give you a cell phone number, everybody.
Come back home to yourself. Yeah. Well, no, wow, Peter. Yeah, just what a gift to have you on the show. I have a committed meditation practice and Kriya yoga, and that's also about, breath. Breath is life, and if we're not in touch with that, then and yeah, once that's gone, what is there, and so it's it's a wake up call to just be creating more value, in our days, in our moments. And I'm taking so much value. I'm in awe of the value that's been created through my time being part of Axiogenics, and just what led to that. And I just want to publicly express my gratitude for you, Peter, and this life changing work that I've embarked on, and feel so grateful to help other people, do in their own unique way. So thank you for making the time to be on the show, and for your wise words, and for who you are.
Jordan, at the time we're recording this, next week is Thanksgiving. And so thank you for giving of yourself in this process. Too often, Thanksgiving is about what we have, what we got. Oh, I'm so grateful to have this, and I'm so grateful to have that. And what if we just say, I'm grateful for giving? I'm so grateful to have been able to give something. And part of that is from my perspective, is you finding your aspiration and inspiration, and you're out giving it to the world through this podcast, through your clients, through your work. CJ, you too. You're very much a part of this, even if you're not trained and certified as an Axiogenics coach, but you are certainly a voice for a better world.
Not yet. I keep nudging him.
I promise you this. Jordan knows this. I am an advocate. I advocate for this level of thinking for others to instill into their lives, and the value that it generates so often. Real quick, also, please, Peter, how can people follow your work before this day ends? I just want everybody to know, if they want to, how can they get in touch with you?
Well, I'm certainly on LinkedIn. My email address is peterd@axiogenics.com. You can go to axiogenics.com and get in touch with me through that. There's my email address. LinkedIn. I don't actually use Facebook very much, or any other social media very much, quite frankly. And stay tuned about what we're working on in AI. If anybody is out there is a certified investor, we're looking for investors in this endeavor. So, yeah.
Beautiful. Jordan, I'll let you close us out. And Peter, thank you from the bottom of my heart. I know that your words are always given just to give, not to give back or anything like that. But it is this was a very heart-filled session. So I immensely appreciate your time.
It's been an honor and a pleasure to be with you, and I thank you for your work.
Yeah, I think it's well said. I mean, you're welcome to join us any time in the future, Peter, and we'll be spreading the good word of formal axiology and self-leadership development, and just know that you're a key piece in our message here. So thank you again for joining us, and we'll talk to you next time.
I'd also encourage people to check out hartmaninstitute.org. You can become a member, and you can participate in the greater global organization that furthers Dr. Hartman's work and for the formal axiology. That's my plug, because I'm on the board of directors.
I'm a member too. It's
filled
with resources, and this is important work.
Next year we're having our 50th anniversary conference. So,
wow.
Be there and be good. All right.
Thank you for joining us today on the Practicing People's podcast. We hope you found our conversation inspiring and thought-provoking. We appreciate your support and passion for personal growth and self-improvement.
To help build the Practicing People's community, please follow us on Instagram at Practicing People's Podcast for updates, behind-the-scenes content, and engaging discussions. Liking and sharing our posts will spread the word about the podcast to others who can benefit from these conversations. You can also reach out to us at our website, www.practicingpeoples.com, for more materials and ways to tap into the community.
Leaving a rating and review on your preferred podcast platform is a valuable way to support us and help potential listeners discover our show.
Remember, personal growth is a journey we embark on together. Let's build a community where we uplift and inspire one another to achieve our true potential.
Thank you for being part of the Practicing People's podcast family. And until next time, keep practicing and keep growing.